Hey Film Buffs, welcome back to Film Feature 43. I just got back from watching Scream 5. For the sake of this video, I'm going to call it Scream 5. I'm not going to call it Scream, because that'll get confusing. And I'm not going to call it Scream 2022, because that's just too long of a thing to say. So I'm going to call it Scream 5, just for the purposes of this review, and probably for the rest of my life, just because it's easier to denote it that way. If you haven't seen my video on what I thought was going to happen in Scream, it's about a 50-50 shot on some things, and the other things I got completely wrong. So go check that out before you see the movie if you want to see what my predictions were. This review is going to have heavy spoilers, so go watch the movie before you watch this video and this review, and realistically, go watch the movie before you watch any review, because that's going to ruin this type of film. It's a whodunit film. Every Scream has been that way. Don't spoil it for yourself. Go and watch it. Have a good time. With all that out of the way, let's get into talking about Scream 5. The first thing I thought was kind of interesting is they went with a landline call for the first call of the film. Nobody really has landlines anymore, except for my parents, who live in the middle of nowhere. So a landline call was kind of a neat callback to the original. Maybe a little bit unbelievable for somebody to still have a landline that works, but it was a nice little callback to the original. The first thing in my last video that I talked about that might happen, and people kind of had ideas about, was Stu Macher coming back as one of the villains for this film, and that didn't happen, but it kind of did. Actually, Stu didn't return, but a de-aged Skeet Ulrich returned as Billy, as a good guy force ghost hallucination to his estranged, illegitimate daughter. I didn't really like this aspect of it. I thought the CGI de-aging looked really wonky. And to me, Billy Loomis is one of the scariest people to don the Ghostface mask. He's the most believable. I feel like he has one of the best motives, not that there ever is a good motive for murder, but the most believable motive. That motive, of course, being that Cindy's mom ruined his parents' marriage, and somebody who does have kind of sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies would, I guess, rationalize that as being a motive for murder. In trying to make him kind of a sensei or a guiding force to his daughter really was odd to me. I didn't like that aspect of the film. That kind of didn't play well with me, but maybe you liked it. I'm not exactly sure. I personally did not. The next thing I talked about was I thought there were going to be 3 killers in this film. I hadn't seen that anywhere to give me any idea about that. I just thought that'd be a cool aspect to make it. They revealed one killer, revealed a second, and you think that's it, and then there ended up being a third killer. I thought that'd be cool. They didn't do that. Also, everybody who I thought was going to be a killer ended up being a victim. I'm actually kind of glad that they killed off Vince. I think the killings in general were pretty well done. Sometimes maybe a little bit unbelievable about how they isolate the victims to be killed, like the entire floor of the hospital being empty. I know Judy said some line about getting her to an isolated floor, but there wasn't more than just one person watching that floor with a patient on. I don't really buy that. Also, when Chad's killed, before he's alone in the backyard, you hear people talking from the party, and then they just kind of disappear. And I think the most sort of egregious is Judy's death on the front porch of her house in broad daylight. It kind of feels like somebody in that suburb would have seen something, especially with Judy's car racing to the house with the sirens on. I feel like that would draw some kind of attention, that they would see her being killed on her front porch. The screams that have come before kind of gave better explanations about why the victims are alone, like everybody leaving Stu's party to go see the principal that's dead. To me, makes sense as something high schoolers would do, but whenever somebody's being killed in broad daylight, it's kind of hard for me to believe that nobody saw Ghostface. That's just a little nitpick that I have that doesn't really affect the enjoyment of watching the movie. You have to suspend your disbelief a little bit to watch these kind of movies to believe that anybody could get away with doing this many killings in a community where everybody's looking for the killer. Like I said, my predictions were completely wrong about who the killer was going to be, but I feel like it was telegraphed who the killers were in this film. It wasn't as much as a shock to me as previous Scream movies. Whenever Richie gets his arm cut but sustains no other injuries, when he's attacked by Ghostface, and when him and Amber both usher everybody out of the party, when there was really no reason for Richie to usher people out of the party because he was just grabbing the inhaler and leaving, that really telegraphed who the killers were to me, especially when Amber goes down into her own basement and there's a killer on the loose and she shuts the door behind her. Going down into the basement isn't that weird, but shutting the door to shut off the only people that hear you being killed is really odd to me. I feel like it's kind of an homage to Tatum's death. But when Tatum went out into the garage, she didn't really have a fear of the Ghostface killer, just because this is the first go-around. By this time, there are 8 stab movies. These characters know the rules of these horror films, so shutting the door behind her was really just stupid and really telegraphed that she was a killer because she had no fear of this killer that could be anywhere. As far as acting performances in this film, the original 3 characters that are brought back, I think, do an amazing job for the screen time that they're given. Dewey's given a lot more screen time than I thought he was going to be given, and Sidney a lot less. But if they're going to pivot away from the Sidney Prescott story, I can understand why they wouldn't give her as much screen time. The 2 standouts in the new cast that I really liked, and one of them isn't going to be in any further films, clearly, is Jack Quaid's character, Richie, and Jenna Ortega's character, who's Tara Carpenter. I thought these 2 characters, to me, were the funniest. They were the best acted and given the most straightforward jokes, not so much meta jokes that we got from some of the other characters. Richie had some of that meta stuff, but to me, I thought it played a little bit better than kind of some of Mindy's lines. Some of Mindy's stuff was extremely meta. With this movie being so meta, sometimes it just felt like it was beat you over the head with it. But since Scream kind of broke the mold in that regard, and now every film does the meta stuff, I think that this movie felt like it had to go even bigger than most films, which I guess is fine. I just kind of didn't like how ham-fisted they were at some times. Don't take a shot for every time I said the word meta. I know I said it a lot, but I'm just trying to get through the point that I didn't really like how hard they went in that direction. They really tried to replace the Randy character with Mindy, I think, and I didn't like the way that that character was played, in my opinion. Randy would have guessed that Amber was the killer as soon as Amber went into the basement by herself. Randy would have knew. And I guess saying that is kind of hollow in some ways, because when you grew up watching the original and comparing these remakes to the original might be a little unfair, but that's what you invoke when you remake or soft reboot something like Scream that was such a genre-defining movie. You're going to invoke comparisons to that movie. So, I guess, to be fair, it wasn't awful. It wasn't my favorite Scream movie. Even not counting the first movie, it wasn't my favorite. There were scenes in it that I did really like. Like I said, the killings were really well done. I did call Judy being killed and actually her son being used as bait to lure her to her death. I saw that coming. The Dewey thing, where he was killed, that was extremely impactful, I thought. I think very well done. I think David Arquette acted extremely well for being this legacy character that he knew was going to be killed off. I'm sure he knew that going into it before he signed on, and I think he acted in that part extremely well. The one other small detail that I did get right, and they didn't use a lot of the footage of it, was the metal Ghostface mask was going to be used as like a stab promo, and they got Dead Meat James from the channel Dead Meat here on YouTube to kind of cameo talking about it. I thought that was pretty funny. That kind of meta stuff where it hasn't been done before, I think is really funny. Or it hasn't been done as much is really funny. deconstructing the horror genre has been done in a lot of films, and granted, Scream was the first one to do it. They just didn't break a lot of new ground with this, in my opinion. It just wasn't what I had high hopes for, and to be fair, that's a little bit on me. I feel like this was kind of a retread of Scream 4, where the motive is to become famous off of the killings and to start the next generation, which I think maybe kind of close to what Charlie and Jill were trying to do in the fourth film. So, I mean, to me, it was kind of a retread. Overall, I did like the film, but like I said, just not my favorite. But that's my opinion. Let me know, have you guys seen the movie? What's your favorite Scream movie? My favorite's obviously number one. I'd probably say actually number 2 or 4 takes second place for me, but let me know what you guys think. Maybe three's your favorite. Doubtful, but it's possible. Let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.